Welcome back to Reddit's Darkest Corner. Do not watch if you are easily scared of ghosts or the paranormal. The Man in the Mirror. I always loved the thrill of old, abandoned houses. There's something fascinating about wandering through a place where time seems to stand still, each creak of the floorboards and draft of cold air telling stories of lives once lived. Last month, my friends and I decided to explore an old Victorian mansion on the outskirts of town. It had been vacant for decades, rumored to be haunted, but that only fueled our curiosity. The mansion was a decaying marvel of Gothic architecture, its windows shattered and ivy crawling up its cracked walls. We entered through a rotting door, flashlight beams cutting through the dense dust. The place was as eerie as expected: creaky stairs, dusty furniture, and the occasional scurry of rats. We spent hours roaming the house, capturing photos and recording our findings. It wasn't until we reached the master bedroom on the top floor that things started to feel unsettling. The room was dominated by an enormous, ornate mirror. It was covered in a thick layer of grime, but it seemed oddly pristine compared to the rest of the room. For some reason, I felt drawn to it. The mirror was framed in elaborate gold, its surface reflecting the dim light of our flashlights in a way that made it seem almost alive. As I wiped the dust away, a chill ran down my spine. The reflection showed the room behind me, but there was something off. An extra shadow, dark and shapeless, lurking just beyond the edges of the room in the glass. I thought it was a trick of the light, or perhaps my imagination running wild. I mentioned it to my friends, but they laughed it off. We joked about the ghost stories we'd heard about the place, but my unease persisted. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Later that night, after we had left the mansion and were back in the safety of our homes, I reviewed the footage and photos we'd taken. When I came across the images of the mirror, my blood ran cold. In every single photo, the shadowy figure was there, hovering in the reflection, but never visible in the actual room. That's when things started to get really strange. Over the next few days, I began to notice a figure watching me from the edges of my vision. It was always fleeting, a dark shape slipping just beyond my sight. I thought it was stress or exhaustion until I began to see it more clearly. The figure was identical to the shadow in the mirror. A tall, gaunt man with hollow eyes and a face twisted into a grotesque grin. One night, as I lay in bed, I heard a soft scratching sound coming from my bedroom mirror. I turned on the light, but nothing was there. The sound continued, louder and more frantic, as if someone was trying to break through from the other side. Desperate to end the nightmare, I went back to the mansion with a friend, hoping to find some explanation or closure. We returned to the master bedroom, and the mirror was still there, untouched. But as I stared into it, the shadowy figure appeared again, clearer than before. This time, it was no longer just a shadow. It was a man, grinning wickedly, his eyes locked onto mine. I reached out to the mirror, but before I could touch it, a freezing cold hand gripped my shoulder. I turned to see my friend's terrified face, and when I looked back at the mirror, the man was gone. We fled the mansion, never looking back. Since that night, the shadow has become more than just a fleeting presence. It follows me everywhere, appearing in mirrors, windows, and even in dark reflections. I've tried to move, but no matter where I go, the figure finds me. The scratching in the mirror has grown louder, more insistent. It's as if something or someone is trying to break free from the other side. If you ever find yourself in an old, decaying mansion, and you come across a mirror that seems too clean, too pristine for the surrounding decay, don't look into it. Don't even touch it. Whatever you do, don't invite the man in the mirror into your world. Trust me, you don't want to know what he wants. A silent whisper. It was the middle of the night, and I was alone in my apartment. I live in an old building, the kind that creaks and groans with every shift in temperature. I've always been a night owl, so it wasn't unusual for me to be awake at 3 a.m., scrolling mindlessly through my phone. The whisper came from the hallway outside my bedroom, just a faint, breathy sound that I couldn't quite catch. I froze, staring at the door, half expecting someone to knock or walk in. But there was nothing. No footsteps, no more whispers, just the low hum of my refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards. I shook it off as my mind playing tricks on me and went back to my phone. But then it happened again. This time it was clearer, almost as if someone was standing right outside my door. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable, pleading, desperate. I sat up, my heart pounding in my chest. I listened carefully, trying to make sense of what I was hearing, but the whisper had stopped again. Maybe it was a neighbor, I thought. The walls in this building are thin, and I've heard snippets of conversations before, but this didn't sound like it was coming from another apartment. It sounded like it was right there in my hallway. I got out of bed, slowly and quietly, and crept toward the door. I pressed my ear against the wood, holding my breath, listening. Nothing. Just silence. I waited for a few minutes, then finally decided I was being ridiculous. I was too tired to be spooked by what was probably just the wind or my imagination running wild. But as I turned to head back to bed, the whisper came again, this time louder. I whipped around, my hand reaching for the door handle. The voice was clearer now, a soft, trembling whisper. "Please, let me in." My blood ran cold. I don't know what possessed me, but I yanked the door open without thinking. The hallway was empty. I stood there, my heart racing, trying to make sense of what just happened. The light above me flickered, casting strange shadows on the walls. I could feel the cold draft coming from the window at the end of the hallway, but there was no sign of anyone. I slammed the door shut, locking it quickly. My hands were shaking as I backed away, staring at the door as if it might burst open at any moment. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the whisper again, just outside the door, begging to be let in. Over the next few days, it got worse. The whisper became more frequent, more insistent. It followed me everywhere in the apartment, the bathroom, the kitchen, even the living room. But it was always just out of reach, just beyond the door or around the corner. "Please, let me in." I tried ignoring it, drowning it out with music or the TV, but nothing worked. The whisper cut through everything, a constant, chilling presence that I couldn't escape. One night, after days of this torment, I finally broke down. I was exhausted, scared, and desperate for it to stop. I sat on the floor in front of the door, tears streaming down my face, and whispered back, "What do you want?" For a moment, there was silence. Then, the voice responded, clearer than ever before. "I just want to come home." My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know what to say, what to do. My mind raced, trying to understand what was happening, but nothing made sense. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. The whisper was so soft, I almost didn't hear it. "I used to live here." I felt a chill run down my spine. I had never heard anything about my apartment being haunted, and I'd been living there for years. But the fear in the whisper was real, tangible. Why can't you come in?" I asked, dreading the answer. There was a long pause, and then, finally, the whisper responded, so faint it was almost lost in the silence. "I'm trapped. I need you to let me in." I didn't know what to do. Every instinct told me to leave, to get out of that apartment and never look back. But something kept me rooted to the spot, staring at the door, feeling the weight of the presence just beyond it. I wanted to help, but I was too scared. The whisper came one last time, pleading, desperate. "Please, let me in." I took a deep breath, reached out to unlock the door, and just as my hand touched the lock, everything went silent. The whisper was gone. I waited for what felt like an eternity, but it never returned. The apartment was quiet, eerily so. I moved out the next day, too unnerved to stay another night. But sometimes, late at night, in my new place, I think I hear it again, just a faint whisper, begging to be let in, begging